Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
All right, we are back again with another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show, and I'm here with my new friend Scott Johannes. He is a 60-year, nearly 60-year Alaska resident and retired from the contracting industry. So Alaska contractor, he's seen a lot of the ups and downs of the Alaska economy, a lot of storms, but literally and figuratively. Scott, you've been through a lot up here. We were talking a little bit about just the difficulty of working in the construction industry, not just as a contractor, but as a tradesman as well. Never an easy time to build in Alaska.
No, I think Alaska has more challenges than most any other place. I mean, you've got weather and cold, and you've got the short winter, and the short summers and long winters, and you just got a lot of factors working against you. So it's balancing risk the whole time.
I remember, so my first real job, and I haven't had very many, but my first real job was working for Builder's Choice. I used to be part of Holtquist Construction. They had a truss shop. So a lot of it was thankfully indoors, but you go out and sometimes we'd mess up on a job and things like that. And I remember 20 below, nail guns starting to seize up, things like that. You got to take your gloves off, be able to work on it. And I don't know if I'm having fun right now, but yeah, I mean, just like you said, there's challenges here that other places don't necessarily deal with, but there's always risks. So how did you balance risk both as the boots on the ground technician, so to speak, and as you built this contracting business beyond more than just yourself?
I started out in the trades as a painter, and a lot of exterior painting, and I still remember you lean the ladder up, and you want to cheat and lean the ladder a little bit because you could get a little farther. So you get a little more. You go a little faster, you get a little more per ladder set, and there's a little more return for that. You go too far, and the ladder's coming down. To me, that's kind of, you learn that, you learn to push the limits, but you've got to know when to quit. And I think that's what construction is. You always got to push the limits to see how far you can go, but at the same time, you're looking to learn and not go beyond that limit.
So knowing your own limits, but also, that's where the skill set comes in too, because your limitations, I think, can expand as your skill set grows and as you become more technically proficient, which only comes with more experience.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Everything you learn lets you assess the situation differently and know those limits better, and you have more opportunities to challenge yourself, and that's how you grow and get better.
I like you said challenge yourself too, because that's one thing that I noticed when I was in the construction industry. There were some people that might say, they have 15, 20 years of experience. But you get to working with them and you wonder, are they any more proficient at their job than they were 20 years ago? And do they have 20 years of experience? They have 1 year of experience 20 times because they found out how to do just enough and then kind of did that same thing over and over. They never really did challenge themselves to stretch. And I think for you, to grow into eventually having a contracting business, you had to continually stretch yourself with new challenges rather than just repeat the same minimum standard of behavior over and over and over again that we sometimes see.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And you don't get too far if you just do the same thing over and over again. So I was always looking for new challenges and new things to get involved in and new business opportunities. And so, I started as a painting contractor and worked up into being general contractor. Then you just start doing bigger and bigger projects.
How long ago did you make that switch from painting to general contractor?
That was in 95.
Okay. Yeah. So in the 80s, when real estate crashed up here, people were walking away from projects, not just working for walking away from projects, but walking away from their homes. I mean, I was young, but my dad had several pieces of real estate. Thankfully, his income wasn't dependent on that. He had another source of income, so he could float the mortgages on empty buildings. But I know that wiped out a ton of contractors. How did you survive that?
I was fortunate. I figured, you find things that are opportunities in that market, and I did a lot of nasty construction work going into just horrible homes for banks and cleaning them up and turning them around for the banks. And that was, was a way to turn money at the time when there wasn't much money in the community. So that's how I paid my bills. But yeah, fixed up a lot of foreclosed homes.
Well, you said something interesting. Most people saw an obstacle. You saw an opportunity. You didn't phrase it like that, but
yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when we talk about risk that's so important is, right now, as we're recording this, we're a few weeks away from the election, and there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity. And just in our short time together, I can sense in you that you have a tolerance for uncertainty, a tolerance to not know what the next moment is going to bring. And that's where a lot of people struggle. And without that tolerance for ambiguity, it's really hard to see opportunity in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of difficulty. And I mean, just from an investing standpoint, everybody's worried when the market goes down a little bit. And we try to remind people that when the market goes down, you have an opportunity to buy the best companies in the world on sale. And it's being mindful of the obstacle, but seeing the opportunity through it. And that's exactly what you did in the 80s. And I mean, that was just a violent time for the economy, especially here in Alaska. I mean, there's some wider spread things, some tax law changes, all that. But for somebody, I've heard very few people say what you did. They saw opportunity in that. Is that something that you've noticed has kind of characterized your perspective on things?
Well, I think you hit on it. When things go bad, the risk goes up. But with risk, as the risk increases, there's the opportunity for return. And so, yeah, there were opportunities there that didn't exist before, and some of them were quite profitable. I mean, I know a few people my age that were better off financially than I were, and they were able to take advantage of buying real estate during that market. They're very wealthy today. So the opportunity's there, but the risk was there too. I mean, when people are leaving the state and the banks can't get rid of properties fast enough, it's kind of a bold move to be buying. But that was where money was made.
Well, again, we already touched on it. You've been up here for almost 6 decades, and you've weathered a lot of storms. And one of the things that I think makes people not just successful in business, but successful as investors is being able to weather storms, not to miss them, but to weather being able to stay in the game. Obviously, there's risk that you have to absorb. But Scott, how did you balance that risk to make sure that you weren't taking too much risk that if things went sideways that wipe you out? Like how did you balance those risks so you were able to recover from when things didn't go well? Didn't overextend yourself.
I'd love to tell you it's because I was really smart and figured it out. Some of the things I touched went horribly bad. Some of them went well, and you just keep pushing. And I think if you just keep pushing, the winds eventually catch up, and it just gets ugly. But what happens, I see it over and over, people get a loss and they get paralyzed with it. I lost some money, I can't do this again. And they get paralyzed, they just can't move forward with it. And usually that's the time when it's most important to keep pushing, so.
And they experience loss as a permanent thing. It becomes a sentence rather than a season in their life.
Yeah, and it's not one project went bad or one investment went bad or one piece of real estate went bad. I lost, and that's the view. I lost, and I mean, I've seen people do it in the stock market crash. I can never get in the stock market, and I can't handle a loss like that. Well, there was opportunities there, and I got this weird thing with the stock market. When it goes up, I look at it. When it goes down, I look at something else. I mean, why look at it when it's going down? But it feels good when it's going up. And you can drive yourself nuts. And I know people that can't invest in the stock market just because they can't stand. All they can see is the downs.
And I think that, obviously with the stock market, it's very obvious. Like, we can look that up. You can see your investments on a day-to-day basis. But that idea of being able to stand back up after being knocked down, like in some areas, again, running a business, it might be harder to see what that looks like. Those losses or those temporary setbacks aren't always as obvious. But I think too often we're worried more about avoiding being knocked down than we are about planning how to get back up. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So we got a question from Greg here. Sorry, Scott.
So how many people did your painting business start with?
Well, when I started out, there was me and two painters, and grew from there. And then, like I said, in '95, I transitioned into general construction.
Okay.
But at the point in '95, I had 70 painters that were working for me at that point.
Say that one more time.
70.
70. So from 2, the way you started, you built it up to 70.
And then when you became a general contractor, what did that build into?
For me, it was a general contract. They build commercial buildings around the state. A lot of just neat opportunities to go around and build some neat buildings. But it also provided opportunities in the real estate market because some of the companies didn't want to own their buildings, so I could build them and then lease them back to them. So that opened up a whole another avenue of investment.
So through the course of this, Scott, I mean, obviously as the business owner, you bore the brunt of that risk. But I mean, as we're sitting here talking, these opportunities that you opened up weren't just for you. You opened up opportunities for a lot of other people to have employment, to learn and grow in their craft and their trade. How much of that was a part of your decision making, the opportunities that you would open up for other people?
I've always felt that, again, I didn't have the skills or to do everything I wanted to do. So I was very fortunate. I surrounded myself with very good people. And so I knew that my success was based on them. So I had no problem saying, hey, if I do well, you're going to do well. So that was part of my plan all along. And actually, when I retired my construction company, the plan and what we did was transferred it down to the next generation coming up. And they've since passed that on to the next generation. That just became the philosophy. You know, the young guys in the field that have the energy and the ambition, they're what are driving the engine. And it's, they deserve to share in that reward.
Well, and you've put yourself in a position to take some risks, but to also be successful. And like we already talked about, I mean, there's a lot of character qualities that surround that. If put you on the spot a little bit here, Scott, but if there's a particular character quality that you think you owe a lot of your success to, what would it be? Don't be modest.
It's I would say it's loyalty, but it's not loyalty on my part. I like to think I'm loyal, but what's really done it is the people around me have been loyal to me. And if you got a group of people that are committed to your success, you're going to be successful. And I've just been fortunate that I've always been surrounded by good people who are committed to my success. So their loyal to me is really what's been the secret to my success.
You were able to create buy-in with the people around you.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think it's a good segue into it, is you've been the type of person, you've mentioned it several times, you use the word blessed, but you've allowed those blessings to flow through you like a river rather than being dammed up like a lake where the blessings just sit there and they grow stagnant and they grow a little pond scum. Like you seem like the type of person that has allowed those blessings to come to you, but then redirect them to others. What's the motivation behind that?
Faith is a huge part of that. I mean, I think we're called to do that. So that's undeniably a large driver in it. But it's just the acknowledgement that, like I said, that I'm not where I am because of my own efforts. There's a lot of other people. When you look in the mirror and you say, you have the opportunity to look in the mirror and say, what I have is because of me. And if you do that, then, okay, that's mine. But if you look at me in the mirror and say, no, what I have is because of other people and I'm deserving of it. I'm not deserving of that. Then the natural thing is you want to bless those around you. And once you start doing that, the rewards just come back to you. And again, I said people being loyal to me, the more you try to bless them, the more loyal they are. So the more it benefits you, even though that wasn't the intent and why you got into it.
Dave Ramsey was with him earlier this year, and he said the most fun he's ever had with money was giving it away. Can you relate to that?
Absolutely. I mean, just seeing how it can change somebody's view of the world or view of the day, or, impact their life. There's people that have had some hard lives, and, when you can show them an opportunity, it's an unbelievable blessing to be able to witness that. I tell people all the time that one of the greatest gifts you can have is if you can witness God working in people's lives. And when you do something to bless them in a way that they feel it came from God, I mean, you get to witness that, and it's pretty incredible.
I was not planning to ask you this, but you just triggered something in me. A lot of people view mission and ministry different than work. It's almost as if you're making money in an enterprise, that it can't be ministry. But you've used your companies, you've used your businesses as ministries. You still made some money. You've been an example of somebody who has blessed others, been impacted by the blessing, but has sustained that carrying forward by making a profit doing some of that, and it's okay. And I want to highlight that, because I think there's people that view those things differently. I do ministry at church on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, or whatever, and then I go to work Monday through Friday. But it sounds like, Scott, you allowed those things to kind of blur the lines, and work became a way to pour into the lives of others and to minister to those individuals. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's just grown. I mean, as I've grown, that's grown, and my understanding and my willingness and my blessing from it it just continues to grow in my life.
When did you start making generosity?
I'd like to think it's just something that's always been ingrained in me. Like I said, as I've grown, as I've matured, as my faith, it's become more deliberate and I'm more aware of it. But it's just something I think has always been a part of who I am.
One of the things that I'll hear from people sometimes when we talk about generosity, because I think, first of all, Scott, you and I would both agree that trying to accumulate wealth for wealth's sake is such a dangerous and misguided journey. And it usually ends in disaster, because wealth there's no finish line. And instead of using wealth as a means to an end, wealth starts controlling you. And I think being generous is a great way to protect oneself from that. But I've heard a lot of people say that when I hit a certain benchmark, when I get a certain income level, when I get the promotion, then I'll be generous. It gets pushed out. Just listening to you talk, generosity has been a habit long before the wealth.
Yeah.
How important is it to be generous, even in small areas, before you're able to give in big ways?
It defines the path you're on. It really does. And so if you're not on that path, like you said, you're on a dead-end street. So I think just, if that's the way you used to steer your path in life, then you're going to benefit from it, because even if the wealth never comes, the rewards are there.
Well, you're a walking example of that, and I just appreciate what you've shared with us and our audience. And you've mentioned several times that you didn't necessarily have all the skills. You didn't make all the right decisions. You emulated great determination, but I've also heard a lot of humility. And those are all character qualities. I just remind our audience too that it doesn't matter so much what you know, it's what you do with the information you have that makes a huge difference. And Scott, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing what you did. It's blessed me. I know it's been an encouragement to those who are going to listen to it. And keep up the great work. Keep blessing others with what you've been given.
Thank you. Enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.